Alright, so the first Democratic debate is over. I might say debates because we had two of them, one Wednesday night and one Thursday night, where we saw enough candidates to fill up a whole NBA roster. Bad. I meant two full NBA rosters. 10 each night. We barely had any actual debating in these debates. It was more of a joint press conference where every candidate is screaming over each other to answer some Q&A questions, and we took a couple detours where the candidates could throw personal attacks at each other. They could attack each other's records. But I digress. I saw both debates, Wednesday night and Thursday night's debate, and I have an opinion on who did good in the debates, who did middle of the road, and who completely missed the mark. And right now, I'm going to put these candidates into a tier list. And to start off, I cannot ignore this guy because he won't shut up, Eric Swalwell. He is a big F, the fattest F in the world. F for fattest F, because this guy would not shut up. He's the friend in a friend group who keeps on making unfunny jokes, and he's the only one that laughs at them. But he continues to make these jokes. He looks around and sees that the friend group doesn't care about the jokes, they don't like the jokes, but he keeps on making the jokes. All he was there to do is throw mud at the candidates who actually were in the race. This guy is on the very right of the debate stage. He's at like 0.5% in the polls, and he got more speaking time than a lot of candidates who I thought should have got more speaking time, just because he kept yelling at people and having these stupid one-liners. The one-liner he had about national security or foreign relations. We're gonna break up with Russia and get back with NATO. Like, why do you have to present things in such a weird way? Like, this guy was just pandering to the worst part of the party right now that's gonna hurt them in the general election. And he just would not shut up, dude. His nonstop blabbering took time away from another candidate who I thought deserved to talk, Andrew Yang. I love this guy, but I have to put him in the F tier because he wasn't debating. He wasn't ready for a debate setting. He's great at sitting down for 5-10 minutes on the internet, interviewing with people, and fully describing his plans, his complex futuristic ideas. But what ended up happening is we're about 20 minutes into the debate. Yang did not even get looked at yet. He did not say anything to the American people. The announcer turns to him and asks him about his UBI policy. So Andrew Yang in 45 seconds has to talk about value-added taxes, has to talk about future automation in America, job loss, and explain a full UBI in 45 seconds. And he did his best, but obviously this is a stage not meant for debating, not meant for intellectual discussion. It's meant for political banter where you're just saying the slogans that you and your team came up with before the debate. And Yang just didn't interject himself enough. He's a really nice guy. He said before the debate he's not going to interject because he wants to actually just introduce himself to American people and to not push his way into the scene without being welcomed in, I guess. But I hope he learns from this debate that if he makes it to a second and third debate, he has to be assertive. He has to go at people. I think after watching that debate, they just looked at him. They looked right past him because he didn't say anything that crazy. The debates right now are all about buzz, are all about zingers, are all about the clickbait titles that you can get from the newspaper outlets covering you. And he just missed the mark on all of that. And that makes him a good politician, I think. Or a bad politician, but a good leader, a good person that could be in charge of policy-making decisions. But obviously, we're not looking for that in this setting. We're looking for people who can be an emotional leader, a figurehead over an actual intellectual leader, which Yang is. There's two more candidates I could put in the F tier right now. Right here, John Delaney. He's one of them, and also Bennet. Now, Delaney just missed the mark on all of his talking points. He had some weird... He was just like... He seemed grumpy the whole time. He didn't talk that much. And then Bennet. He talked too much, I thought. Just because he's so boring. And that's what I'm talking about, the political stuff. You want to be exciting. You want to be clickbait worthy. He was just boring. He was just regurgitating Democratic Party talking points, and they were boring. They would never actually have a chance in a general election. I'm guessing they're just running, sorry for hitting the mic, I'm guessing they're just running for self-political purposes outside of the presidential race, because I don't know why they're here. So for the D range, I would put Hickenlooper. He just seemed like a guy who was calling out the socialism of the Democratic Party, but they asked him to explain what the socialism is, and he went to his direct talking points that he planned before the debate. He never actually answered that question, so he's just coming in and trying to get the more conservative Democrats, I guess, that are afraid of socialism. I keep hitting this, I'm sorry. but the people that are afraid of socialism, and he was just driving that point home. I think he just wasn't sticking out enough in that regard. I don't think anyone's looking for that in the Democratic Party. In a world where Bernie Sanders shifted the whole Democratic Party left, I don't think they're looking for a Hickenlooper. Hey look, I just realized there's 6 tiers here, representing how many candidates should be in the race. So another D range is Tim Ryan. Tim Ryan sounded like he was just running for an Ohio race, not really the presidential race. He was just regurgitating Democratic talking points again, another candidate that doesn't stick out, and that's all I have to say about him. So another D, Gilbrand or Gilbrand, she just pushed her way into a lot of discussions that she wasn't really welcomed into. I give her credit, she was assertive. Where is he? Unlike you, buddy. She was assertive, she got herself in there, but as far as debate performance with what she had before the debate, what she has after the debate, she's still a D. Now, the last D I have might surprise people, but just Beto O'Rourke, just because it's like an athlete who has great potential in the NBA draft, but someone drafts him first overall, and he turns out to be Anthony Bennet, who was a big bust. Like, seeing him on this stage, struggling, he came out right away with the Spanish-speaking spiel right there. Tons of memes about that on the internet, by the way. But that earns him a D because he's underperforming so much. He was hyped up so much in his Texas race against Ted Cruz because the Democratic Party saw so much potential there. They were thinking, wow, we almost knocked out Texas with a Democrat, and we almost knocked out Ted Cruz. They poured so much money into him. I checked out his funding for that campaign in Texas, and I feel like it was like 10 times more funding than Ted Cruz has. So this party was pushing him so hard before. I'm sure people were in his ear saying to run for this, and now he's in a place where he's like 3% in the polls, 4% in the polls. He didn't perform well in the debate, and looking at him before the debate to after the debate, I don't think he grew. I'm gonna put Cory Booker in the C range just to keep it Cory. I love his eyes, by the way. Just stare into his eyes when he's debating. You're gonna see a lot of things. He's just another Democrat. I don't know what else to say. He just kept going back to identity politics. He's from a black and brown community that was poor, which is, I mean, a good talking point, I guess, but for President of the United States, again, before and after the debate, I don't think anyone was looking at him that already wasn't. If anything, they left him for one of the candidates that are going to be in the top 3 tiers. Amy Klobuchar, I don't know how to say her name, but she was kind of middle of the road for me. She seemed like she had a good presence on stage. She seemed like she knows what she was talking about. But again, she just doesn't stick out enough. You can't be boring anymore. You see Donald Trump up here. He's saying nothing most of the time, but he just says it like a showman. We need more showmanship if they want to win in the Democratic Party. And sadly, that means we're going to lose out on a lot of decent candidates, I think, because you need someone who looks the part more than is fundamentally meant for the part. And that's really crooked about our political system today. Joe de Blasio, he just sounded like a loud New Yorker a lot of times, yelling at the other candidates. He stopped at one point to say, everyone up here, the Democratic Party, we're supporting Democratic Party issues. This is how we're supposed to be talking. And he's just loud, he's boisterous. I'm sure a lot of people liked what he said, but again, why would they ever vote him in to be the Democratic nominee? I don't know. Before or after the debate, I think it's insufficient to make him an actual player. Jake Inslee, governor from Washington, very progressive, really cares about climate change. He seemed really mad about it, and that came off as authentic, which I think was really going for him. And I'm happy that he was able to get that across on the debate stage. But yet again, this is not a serious attempt at being president, because you'd have to get past all of this star power right here. Whether it's Harris, Warren, Buttigeg, Biden, Bernie. Like, there's so much star power there. I just don't see it with how politics is today. Social media culture, clickbait, the shiny objects. We care about shiny objects. So I just don't think he'll get a serious look. In the B range, I'll start off with Joey Biden, or should I say Joey Barack. That's not how you spell Barack, but we're going to go with it. He just ran on Obama. I feel like he seemed really off guard, really lifeless for certain questions. Like when Harris confronted him about the race issues, about the busing issues, he seemed to respond defensively. He didn't really get like emotional about it. And when the idiot down here, Swalwell, said to him about his speech when he was 35 about passing the torch to the next generation, Swalwell said, I think we should pass the torch to the next generation, as Joe Biden said when he was my age or whatever. And all Joe Biden had to say back was, I'm still holding that torch. which is just not what we're looking for right now. We need something brighter than that. We need something fresh. He feels 2008. I'll give Castro a B too, just because I think the timing's right for him with the issues at the border, with his heritage, with his upbringing. He spoke really fluently on that topic emotionally. He seemed to really connect there. So I'll give him a B because before the debate versus after the debate, I think a lot more people are talking about him and his performance that weren't before. I'm definitely hearing about him a lot more. I'll actually put Tulsi up at the B range because although she didn't get to talk much, she didn't really answer her questions that directly. She showed where she could shine. She talks like someone who knows what she's speaking about with authority. She's has military service. I think if you were to run a woman against Donald Trump, you should pick Tulsi because she is a very strong woman who could back it up with accolades. And I think that's bad bar to be set because you could have a lot less honorable men get further than Tulsi because they are men. That does exist. But if you are going to put a woman up there, I think it should be someone very, very, very strong and with like a military credibility like Tulsi. I think before the debate to after the debate, enough people heard her to keep her in the loop and to take a serious look at her. Now I'm putting Williamson, the author, up at the A range. The motivational storyteller. I'm just saying just because before to after the debate, she's in a lot of headlines. Her media right now she's getting is probably equivalent to 10 times the actual money she raised because she's getting so much coverage because she spoke authentically. You could tell she's an author in the way she speaks, but you could tell how fluently and sincere it comes off. It doesn't sound prepared, and I'm not sure what was prepared and what wasn't, but she did come out. I don't know where she's from, but she had that draw on her voice, and she sounded authentic with it. She said to the rest of the candidates, we can't be superficial with our ideas, with our plans. I think what she meant to say there was, these plans are cool, it's good to have all these laid out structured plans, but you need to connect to the heart and soul and emotion of the American people. That's what I'm talking about when I was saying earlier the boring candidates can't win. She knows that. She knows that you need to be exciting, you need to be something different. That's how Donald Trump had a chance. He said absolutely nothing in his debates except Republican talking points, and he presented them poorly, but he was just a dominator. He dominated his opponent somehow. He just said words, shiny words that people hooked onto and paid attention to. Another A candidate would be Buttigeg for me because although he didn't speak too much, he showed his demeanor by not just jumping into any debate. The food fights, as Harris called it, when the candidates were yelling over each other, you didn't hear Buttigieg at all. My one friend referenced to Buttigieg as like a sniper. He picks his points, he executes when he needs to, but he's not just going to spit out a bunch of answers like the other candidates will. He picked his spots. When the issue came up with the South Bend police issue, he came out with humility. He didn't try to draw away from it. He said, this is my fault. I could not get it done, but we're working as hard as we could to get this problem solved. And I think that was a chance for him to actually seem kind of presidential. And I think he actually had a very strong showing next to the rest of the clown car, as Fox News is calling the Democratic Party in their headlines today. I should have put Bernie in the B range, but I'll go with A just because he is always Bernie. No matter what, if you don't like Bernie, he's always Bernie. He's never gonna change. He's never gonna talk different, and I could respect that about him because he's just gonna be Bernie. He's always there. We could criticize him for not doing what other candidates are doing, tightening his speech, but maybe him staying the exact way he is gonna show voters that he's consistent. I don't know. Probably not. Now, disclaimer on these two guys, I don't like these candidates for the general election, but the media loves them. So when I'm looking at pre-debate to post-debate, these guys won. They're in the headlines everywhere. Warren had the luxury of playing against a bunch of minor league ballers, so she was able to dominate in that field. Harris just came out aggressively. She came out swinging. She came out as passionate, authentic. The media picked up on her, which is one of the biggest things in the world nowadays. All I saw was Harris won the debates. I saw comedy shows making fun of every other candidate in the race, and that's 19 other people, and they didn't make any jokes about Harris, so obviously she was the media's choice for this week. I'm not sure what these guys were throwing about and why she's champion right now, but she is. So basically, this is where I think people sat in the public eye before and after the debate. These guys really just, they already had a very small amount of support. I think that's going to be drawn away from them. I hope Andrew Yang could make a little effort next debate. He definitely qualified for debate too. I know that. The D range is another generic set of candidates with Democratic talking points. The C range is just a bunch of people who could be more interesting, I guess, but they're simply not. They're simply just blending into the rest of the D and F ranges. They're just a little higher quality. The B range right now with Biden, Castro, and Tulsi Gabbard, I think they had decent showings. They were neutral. Biden as the front runner did worse than he should have. Castro as an underdog did better than he should have. And Tulsi as someone who really was relatively unknown did better than she should have, especially with her talking time, especially with the questions she was asked. The A rank, I don't know why I did this rank. This is the weirdest rank to me that I did. Williamson, the rainbow candidate, she did well because she should have been an F, honestly. She's an author. I didn't know who she was. I had no idea who this person was, and then I saw author, and I'm like, okay, author. So I imagine she would have some good dialogue, some good speech. So she outperformed everyone else compared to where she should have performed. Buttigeg, one thing I like about Buttigeg that I didn't mention, he is a proud gay man, a religious gay man. He actually doesn't run on the fact that he's a gay man. He didn't directly mention that. With his outro, his final speech, he said how his marriage could have been ended by one Supreme Court vote, which was a good little subliminal way to get that in there. And another thing he did that I'm personally a fan of, he said that it's religious hypocrisy for us to be calling the United States a Christian nation and then also let what's happening at the border perpetuate. He said that leaves us disqualified to use religious justification ever again, which is hard to argue with, in my opinion. Bernie was Bernie, authentic. I probably could have put him in the B range. That's all I gotta say about Bernie. He's just the same every week, man. Maybe he'll switch it up one day. I mean, one reason I put him A is because this style fits well for this debate. How you're supposed to just shout stuff you believe in. And Bernie's really good at shouting stuff he believes in. Not really when it slows down and he has to explain it, but for this debate, he did well. These two guys, girls, they both were obviously the media winners all over the news cycle right now. These are the two crowned, whatever that saying is. But yeah, it's really late right now. That's my tier, not really. This is my tier list for the presidential debate performance. I'll do this every time there's a debate. Hopefully next time that I do this, there's only like 5 candidates and not 20,500,000,006.